everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Surey and I'm excited that you're here joining me today for another video. In this video, I wanted to walk through my 2022 year-end reflection and also share with you what my word of the year is going to be for 2023 because it came about as a result of this work, this reflection that I did. So let's go ahead and get started. So this little booklet that you're seeing here, it's from Moxie Life. It is the 2022 Year-End Reflections Notebook. Now, unfortunately, this is not available for purchase. This was something that came as a freebie as part of their launch recently in October of 2022. And I actually grabbed a few things during launch. And since I was part of the review crew, I was able to get an extra one as well. And I've since given the extra one that I have away. But I really hope that the Moxie team comes up with something like this every year. And maybe even something that's a little bit that's extra for people to be able to purchase if they're not buying anything else. That would be amazing. And I say that is because this is the first year that I've actually taken the time to do some sort of reflection like this. And I found it tremendously helpful. I feel like I'm so ready to set my 2023 goals, start writing them down. So a lot of the pre-work has already been done as a result of this reflection. Now, even if you don't have a book like this, that does not mean that you can't reflect on your year to help you if you're someone who's starting to set goals for yourself for the new year. So certainly recommend that you use whatever you have, maybe one of your notebooks that you have lying around. I know that I do, can certainly help you. So this whole book is designed to reflect back on your entire year, and it has a few prompts, and feel free to use the prompts as I'm going through them. Feel free to borrow some of these prompts for yourself as you're thinking about your reflections. So the first thing in this book, and that's one of the things that I really like that it was helpful, is your 2022 year in review. So this little image that you see here is called the Compass Assessment, and within the Moxie Life goal setting system, you're going to see it sprinkled throughout. First, you set one up for the year, and you also revisit it once a quarter so that you see where you're landing in each of the 8 life areas that there's a focus on. So the 8 life areas are personal, fun and recreation, work and learning, family and relationships, health and wellness, spiritual and personal growth, financial and physical environment. And with these 8 areas, you can certainly change them to however you like. So for example, for me, for work and learning, a lot of that this year wasn't necessarily focused on my professional work. I do have a full-time job, but it wasn't necessarily focused on that. It was more focused on my business side of things. So all of my social media and all that stuff. So that was really my focus there. So you can definitely tweak these life areas to make them work for you. And essentially you assign them a score based on a questionnaire that is included in the main planner. So each of those questions you'll be able to answer and provide yourself a grade in terms of a scale from 1 to 10, and then you take the average of that number, and that's going to be your score for that area. So that's where you can see the breakdown over here on the right hand side. So currently the current numbers that I have are on the left hand side, and the start of 2022 was on the right hand side. So let's take a look at personal, which is the very first category. I started 2022 at an 8, and based on my self-assessment now at the end of the year, I'm at about 8.375. So it's an improvement. We're moving forward. I feel like I've made a lot of progress there, even though the number might not be a huge number. It's improvement. Even if the number stays the same, for example, in the financial aspect, the number stayed the same. So at least, I'm not going backwards. And that's not to say that there may be times where you go backwards, and that might be okay. That might be needed in order for you to propel forward. And that's completely fine. So overall, my scores did increase. So if I take the totals, The average total, it was like 6.5 now versus a 5.54, so that's like a whole point increase. So that's really good, and I attribute that directly to the work that I've done around goals this year. And by any means, it was not perfect. I went months without looking at it, but somehow I did find myself going back to it, and I think that's where it counts. That's where we start. We have to start somewhere. So the three different areas that increased the most was physical environment, and I can totally attest to that because I was definitely focused on that. Physical environment had the biggest increase, and then followed by fun and recreation that were tied. And then the area that increased the least, or perhaps decreased, was work and learning. And for me, work and learning as it is designed from a professional standpoint, didn't really improve that much, and I totally agree with that. And the financial aspect, I kind of stayed stagnant there. So this was really good to figure out, okay, let me see what the areas are that I need to focus on. So on this next couple of pages, I have a couple of additional prompts. So we have our wins and we have our highlights, and we have some questions here. So what were my wins for 2022? What accomplishments did I have? And at the beginning, I did get these two confused, like wins and highlights. And the way that I defined it was, and I underlined the word accomplished, because this one gives me more of like a metric or a number that I should focus on, versus this are maybe some nice things that happen that don't necessarily have like a number tied to them, or a score or a percentage tied to them of improvement, but it's still something that I want to recall. So some of my accomplishments, and I mentioned some of these in my 25 days of planner tips videos that I posted up recently, and that was completing my first 8-week boot camp at my gym. I completed a 5K after not running for more than 8 years. I used to be a runner. I've done many races in the past, but I went away from it, and I'm pretty darn proud that I got back to it. And it was really tough because I hadn't done something like that in a long time, but oh wow, that really put me out of my comfort zone. So the other wins for this year, or accomplishments, is sticking to more than over a year of consistent workouts, 5 to 6 times a week, and that has been amazing. Started personal training. This one could be in the highlights section, but I think that's still an accomplishment, so I'm putting it there. And then as a result of that, I sort of put in what's another accomplishment as a result of me sticking to this goal, and that is increased confidence. Another goal of mine was to reopen my Etsy shop this year and really have some really consistent and really focus on that business part of my business, and I was able to do that. And another huge win for us, it was over the summer. My husband and I actually purchased land with a business partner, so we are excited about that project in the future. Unfortunately, I can't really share too much at this point, but at some point maybe I will share. So that has been a pretty big goal, and really, in not so much mine. Is I think this goal is more of my husband's, but obviously as his spouse, I'm supporting him, and I see that as a win for both of us. So that is that's on the win side. Moving on to highlights. So some highlights this year definitely involved a lot of travel. I attended my second Go Wild Planner conference in Anaheim, California, and that was such a blast. I do have a recap video, a vlogging sort of video of that experience, so I'll go ahead and link it here for you in case you want to walk down memory lane with me. And I also did an impromptu trip to visit my parents, and my sister happened to be there in Florida, so we spent some time at their timeshare in Orlando, so that was really fun. We met someone who's kind of like life-changing for us, and actually that's one of our partners for some other business ventures that my husband and I have, and that has been a huge highlight of this year, meeting someone like that. Also another highlight has been Stephen and I feel like we're definitely in a really good spot relationship wise, and I'm really proud of that work. You know, if you're married or if you're in a relationship, you know that it takes a lot of work. And we are going on to our, what year are we on? Yeah, I had to do the math. We're going on to our 18th year together. And that's, you know, that's something that to really be proud of, especially when it's someone that you admire and you appreciate so much and you respect so much and you kind of look up to. And he's definitely my best friend. I couldn't see my world without him. So really happy with our where we are and all of the goals and being on the same page about everything. You know, for the most part, you know, there are certain things that we sometimes we might not be on the same page, but we can certainly work through those together. And the next highlight has been growing my online business. I feel like in the last quarter of 2022, I really focused, I think towards the end of the summer and last, you know, starting in September, I really started to focus. Excuse me, I'm just going to go ahead and turn my phone off because all these noises that are coming from everywhere. I definitely had a pretty successful and consistent business approach, and that's something that I really want to take into 2023, and hopefully you guys have experienced that, certainly with like my posting schedule and all of that stuff. So I've really been intentional about that. Some other highlights this year also have been the collabs that I've had opportunities. I did a campaign with Zebra in September. I did another one with Pilot in October. I did obviously the EC launch earlier this year, and a couple of opportunities came about with them as well, and the Moxie Life launch. So those are all great, you know, obviously fun opportunities because it's something that I love and I'm passionate about. But also from a business standpoint, you know, those are all opportunities that I'm so grateful for this year. And then also just some other highlights I did as part of like my working out. I spent a lot of time outside this summer with my gym. They held a number of different outdoor classes. I participated in like a fundraiser, and it was just so fun this year. I'm sure I'm missing things because, like I said, I kind of went away from my planner a few times. So, you know, I would be really strong and have a really good consistent approach with my routines, but then, you know, something would happen and I would kind of go away from it and then I would come back. So, but as long as we come back, that's the important part. As long as we continue to come back, that's where you know, we continue to make changes. Now, before you go thinking that it was all rosy for this year, it wasn't totally rosy. I did, let me preface this by saying that we really didn't have a ton of challenges this year to overcome, and for that I am definitely grateful. But there were just a couple of things that, you know, as I think about the year, things that maybe got in my way, and some things obviously I couldn't really control, and I had to admit that I just needed rest. But there are some things that I'm really working towards. So the first thing is for challenges, imposter syndrome. So earlier in the summer, I did experience some imposter syndrome, and you know, I've some feelings of inadequacy or not feeling good enough to show up within my community, and I feel like I definitely have been successful in squashing that. And if you're ever in that situation where you feel like you're experiencing some sort of imposter syndrome, as it relates to like social media and your presence online or something like that, my biggest tip, or what has helped me the most, is to not necessarily step away, but not consume as much. What helps me is when I stay in my own lane. I focus. I sort of put on blinders, which is a double-edged sword, because when you put on blinders, then you might miss out on connections and some opportunities. But you have to, for me, I had to protect my peace. And when I don't engage as much is because I'm not consuming as much. So, and is to avoid those feelings of, comparison, etc., because that's when it starts to creep in. So that would be my biggest piece of advice if you're ever in that situation. It's just to not consume as much and really just focus inward. And that's what I did. And I really focused on thinking about gratitude and how am I blessed, and how can I avoid comparing myself to others. And honestly, it has been the past probably 6 months. It's been the most content or happiest I've felt in my mind as it relates to my presence online. So definitely, I recommend that. I also had a back injury in August, so that sort of set me back for about a week. And of course, we couldn't end the year with a cherry on top, which was getting COVID. But we were getting better. My voice apparently doesn't want to come back, but certainly we're getting better. And other than that, no really additional challenges that I can think of, and nothing really major. So happy for that. All right, moving on to lessons that I learned. Some of the lessons. Overall, I felt that this year I had so much more energy, and I think the reason why I had so much more energy to accomplish more, it was because I let go of perfection. That has been something that I've struggled with for a long time, and this year I was really mindful in letting go of that. And if you're someone who struggles with perfection, then I can share what worked for me, and it hasn't like fully worked necessarily. I mean, I think this is something that you kind of always have to work. If that's your natural tendency, you have to kind of work against. But there is a phrase that I sort of keep telling myself, or like a little mantra that I kind of keep telling myself, to let go of perfection. So that little mantra is, do it once. That's it. So it's do it once. So basically, whether I'm working on content or certain things, that does not mean, when I say do it once, it doesn't mean that I let go of, paying attention to details, or, kind of putting out whatever. It's not, that doesn't necessarily mean that, but it is a reminder to not dwell on something for a long time with the hopes of getting it perfect. It's just getting it out there. So whether it's content that I'm working on, or whatever it is, or even something for work that I'm working on, I just try to remind myself, just do it once. That way I'm not really getting bogged down in an extra long period of time where it might not necessarily be necessary. So that has been helpful for me to let go of that perfection, and as a result, I've done so much more. Honestly, I think it started, one of the biggest pieces of an example, or one of the biggest examples that I have of how this sort of thing started, since I was a kid. I used to, in all my school notes, I used to rewrite them a million times because I never liked how they looked on the page. Obviously the first time, and sometimes even the second time. So I kept doing things more than once in order to get them perfect. And that's sort of like the earliest recollection of those tendencies that I tend to have sometimes. And that's where that kind of phrase came from. It's like, okay, we're not gonna do things multiple times. We're just gonna do it once. So, some additional lessons for this year is, it's okay to do my own thing. Kind of going back to that blinders conversation that I mentioned earlier. Kind of do my own thing. I sort of always marched at the beat of my own drum. Like, even when I was in school, I had friends, but I was never like really part of any group. I kind of did my own thing. So I like to march at the beat of my own drum, kind of do my own thing, go at my own pace, and have my own timeline. And I think that is part of like the imposter syndrome, is when we start to compare our lives and our situation to other people. And it's like, you're like, well, I want to keep up with the other person, but maybe that's not necessarily what you need or what you can do. And the more realistic we are with our situation in our current season of life, the more we set ourselves up for more success. Authenticity, I think, not that I'm obviously not an authentic person, I feel like I am, especially in real life, but being in social media for so long, obviously social media has evolved. And I think when we first started, or at least when I first started in social media, there was this perception that you had to come on kind of perfect, or kind of like all, and that sort of perfection didn't lead to authenticity. So now I'm kind of working backwards and kind of peeling some of that early mindset off so that there's more authenticity. I hope that, you kind of feel that, the authenticity within my content and within, me as a person, because obviously I'm trying to make it as real as possible, and show you real life as possible. That's definitely my intent. And I hope that you get that from me and my content. And then the last one, and I was feeling a little bit sassy on this one. I'm okay with not always being liked. This is something that I struggle. I'm a people pleaser by nature, and I like when I guess I used to like when, or I thought that I liked when people liked me. But when I think about it, do I like everyone? No. And I don't mean that like I'm not a people person. I love people. I love relationships. I love making connections. I'm an Enneagram 9, so I like people in terms of, connecting with them at a deeper level. I'm still an introvert, don't get me wrong. I'm still an introvert, but I do like relationships and getting to know people and making connections. I certainly do. But I it's impossible to be able to do that with every single person. So if I think about my own situation, it's like there are some people that I just can't connect with. We maybe don't have the same values. Maybe we, maybe there's things that they do. Maybe, and if I think about it, maybe I do things that either stress you out or you don't like. It could be something small, like, maybe I just don't, I just can't see myself being friends with this person, just because we're sort of different, right? And I can think of a couple of examples. There are a couple of people that, sort of a little bit stress me out, just because of their style, or like their communication style is a little stressful for me. So that's something that's, it's kind of hard to overcome. Not that they're a bad person necessarily. It's just that I don't respond well, as well to that. And we all kind of have our own way. So if I think about it from my own lens, that I can't see myself being friends with every single person, the same is to be said for someone else. Maybe there's something that I do that they don't necessarily appreciate or can connect with. So I'm kind of learning that lesson as well. Then the next couple of topics are all about growth and gratitude. So what have I changed and how have I grown from a year ago? Definitely feel more free to be myself. This whole process has really increased my awareness. I'm definitely stronger as a result of my dedication to my physical fitness. I am very self-aware. I've always been a pretty self-aware person, so I can identify when I'm slacking. And I guess that's one of the reasons probably is why I kind of did well in school, or I wasn't like teacher's pet, but I guess teachers appreciated was that they didn't have to tell me. Like, I knew when I wasn't doing my best or when I needed to make some changes. So and definitely I have more determination and more follow through. So definitely a lot of growth there. For gratitude, of course, I'm so grateful for my family overall, my creative abilities. I feel it's also a double-edged sword, because I feel like I'm almost too creative, that there's not enough time for all the creativity that I have in my mind. Some new opportunities this year, as well as my body. I'm so grateful for all these things this year. The next two sections is where I really started, based on the previous work that I did, I really just started thinking about what's working, what isn't working, and from this is where I derive my areas of focus for 2023. So what's working, the biggest one for me this year was health and wellness, and as you can see, I did underline them in the color category for or the color that goes with this category. So health and wellness is the blue, obviously the consistency with workouts, and a couple of things on the personal side: letting go of perfection, strategic multitasking. I've talked about this in some of my day in the life videos, but I sort of tried to figure out a way to get more done by being strategic with multitasking, because multitasking can also be the opposite of what we think. It might not necessarily always be effective, but trying to be strategic around that. And the start of my routines, my word of the year for 2022 was routine. And I feel like I definitely made a lot of progress with those. Definitely not perfect, but more progress. At the same time, you can have something that's working and also have something that's not working, all within the same category. So you can see that I also have health as something that was not working, and because health is such a big umbrella. So with health, you know, you might have your fitness, you might have nutrition, you might have just like mental wellness, for example. So why I put it here as is not working is because on the nutrition side, I feel like even though I made a lot of progress on the physical side, my nutrition wasn't there. So that's something that I want to focus on in 2023. And then on the green side, my finances, that really went off the deep end for 2022. And I've already started making changes in preparation of 2023, because finances, oh yeah, you know, just the overall mismanagement. A little bit disappointed in how I've handled that this year, but we move forward, right? So that's where I'm moving towards this year. Then on the personal side, just continue to be more consistent with routines. Be more specific with writing goals. I noticed that about myself. When I write goals, I can't just kind of write something general. That might work for some people, even though it's specific, but it needs to be, for me, it needs to be a little bit more filled in. So for example, I can't just say, you know, nightly routine, PM routine, or PM habits, you know, do them daily. Sure, that might be specific enough for some people, but I need to get a little bit more granular. So, you know, do my PM habits right after dinner, Monday through Friday, or something like that. So I need to be a little bit more specific. And then just getting a little bit more focused on the professional front, professional development for work. That's something that I've done a lot in the past, but this year I sort of let it go on off by the wayside. Next, we have impact. So these are, how do I want people to experience me? In what ways do I want to create an impact in the life of my loved ones or within the world at large? These are some of my aspirations and impact that I'm looking to do. I love a welcoming environment at home, a cozy environment. Home is my favorite place to be, so I definitely want to focus on that. Create more things that are more automated. I feel like I've done some of that with, like, on my business side. From the content standpoint, I think that's what has helped me stay more consistent. So anything that I can figure out to do more automated at home, I certainly want to do that. I like to be more proactive and planning more ahead of time. I like to plan, of course, obviously, why I'm here, but sometimes I'm not the most proactive person, so I'm definitely going to be working on that, and then also providing value in my community, whether it's my personal community of my family, friends, or here on social media. Some adjustments that I would make for this year in 2023 is to work ahead as much as possible. One thing that I have to remember is that time goes by and the time will get here. So if we're planning on taking a vacation in June, guess what? June of 2023 will be here, next thing you know, and I want to be prepared. So work ahead as much as possible, and at the same time managing procrastination. And then overall, just be more intentional with my time, with money, and family time. Specifically, my sister, I feel like, she lives so close, but we don't get to see each other. So that's something that I really want to work on. Okay, and then this is the last 2 pages that I'll cover in this book, which is reflections. So there are space for you to write 3 words to describe 2022, 3 words to describe how I felt, and 3 words to describe how I want to feel. So to describe overall my 2022, I would say growth, awareness, and finding myself were the biggest themes that I can think of. How I felt strong, I was positive for most of the year, and I was persistent. And how I want to feel in 2023, I want to feel like I have more control over my life, my choices, etc. Just being more intentional and overall peace. What I'm most excited for 2023 are challenges, new challenges. Now that I know my biggest 2 areas of focus for 2023 will be financial and physical as it relates to my nutrition. And then these are the 3 areas of life that I'm going to be working on. So financial, health and wellness, and professional development. I'm going to be working on those. What I'm going to say no to in 2023, imposter syndrome, that's out the door. We are done with that. More engaged, I'm going to say no to disengagement on the professional front. So I want to be more engaged with my professional development and also be able to say no to new things unless they're the right things. So really think about it, because I already have enough on my plate. I don't want to take on any more unless it's the right opportunity, which brings me to what I'm going to say yes to. So the right opportunities and collaborations with others within my community, and I'm going to say yes to showing up imperfectly. What I'm going to stop apologizing for, this one was a little bit tough for me, but one of the things that I'm going to stop apologizing for is when I know I'm doing my best. When you know you're doing your best, like, don't apologize. Like, you're working super hard. So don't apologize for that, because you're already doing the best that you can. So, and then who's going to be my support network in 2023? My husband, of course, my community, my friends, and my work environment, my teammates can be my support. And that's something that I've practiced. It wasn't necessarily a goal for 2022, but I've definitely practiced, and that's like asking more for help from people. I tend to not do that at all, but I'm going to be asking for more help from folks. So the next 2 pages in this book is a section for you to write a letter to yourself. Because it is a little bit more of a personal note to myself, I'm not going to share that with you, but it's essentially a letter reflecting on 2022 overall, the growth that I've made, and then what are some words of encouragement that I want to take on with me in 2023. The next section is more of like a brain dump for 2023, and I started kind of putting down some of the themes for the year based on the work that I did on the reflections side and all these pages. So some themes: do it once. There's that phrase that I mentioned earlier. I want to remember that because it definitely works. Prepping and planning ahead, financial control and being more intentional, and practicing contentment. I think that is the biggest driver for financial success is contentment. And then don't wait until everything is perfect or lined up. Get going. And that brings me to my word of the year, which is launch. And the meaning behind that is launch as in, get started, get going, just go for it. And don't wait, don't think about it too much. Obviously, I'm not gonna launch into something irresponsibly. I'm going to do my homework whenever it's applicable, etc. But I just wanted one word that I could anchor myself to in 2023 that would get me out of my, the continuous work that I'm doing around perfectionism and sometimes getting stuck and kind of getting in my own way. And I think that word launch kind of summed up exactly how I want to approach 2023. So I'm so excited for this new year. I hope that it is a successful, fruitful year for you as well. I can't wait to cheer you on. I'm definitely going to be sharing my process, my wins, my challenges throughout the year, just like I have been. And I hope that you join me in this journey. Let me know if you have any comments or questions regarding my process for reflection. I hope that this helped you. Let me know in the comments if something like this helped you, to kind of see my notes and my thought process. I feel like this is something that would help me if I were stuck or if I didn't know how to get started or what I should be thinking about. But this was so helpful for me. I hope that it was helpful for you. Thank you guys again for joining me in this very special video in preparation for a brand new year of success that I know we're all gonna have. Let me know again if you have any comments or questions down below. And as always, friends, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.